the boat.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Rhino.
What do you guys want to talk about?
We're doing something a little different tonight. What's up, everyone? Beautiful Thursday night. How about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish? Said this a couple days ago to Corn Dog, who doesn't want a beam. He wants a beam that shoots up a corn dog to the sky. Yes, that's from him, not me. That's from him. But as this college football playoff progresses and it grows and it expands and it becomes the new standard for deciding a champion in college football, I think we're going to see a distinct advantage for teams that get to play a home game. There's something different about playing a playoff game in a college atmosphere and getting that bump, getting that momentum from your fan base. Now, obviously, you've got to win the game first. But if you win that game, look at what happens. Did anybody have Notre Dame bouncing Georgia 23-10 today? I thought Notre Dame could win. I didn't think that they would beat them the way they did. Marcus Freeman does something that Brian Kelly cannot do. Even now, wherever the hell he's at, is he at LSU? Still rocking his fake accent? Family. It was so funny. Guy leaves South Bend and he goes to LSU and all of a sudden he has a Cajun accent. What happened there? And anyways, a lot to get to. Jaden Ivey, surgery, broken fibula. He is out for the Pistons. Too bad for him. The year of injuries continues. And what's that team here in Sacramento? Is it the Kings? Is that team? Do they officially have a winning streak? 2 in a row? What the hell's going on? Anyways, we've got a ton to get to. Want to engage with all of you. Get active in the chat. Also, you can call the show. You saw the number there. In fact, the show has been getting some voicemails lately. People that haven't been able to get through. So if you leave a voicemail and it's clean, because I can see the transcript, we'll play it on air. I got you. We'll get to some of those here in a little bit. We're going to talk about last night. What'd you think? Kings brought the hustle. Hell of a fourth quarter. Can't take that away from them. Memphis up next in a hobbling, injured Memphis team rolling into Sacramento. So we'll get into all of that and more. Court is in session. Night Court here on If You Don't Like That.
Break it down. It's Sacktown, we're the crown.
Needs to be more aggressive on the offensive end, but this is the kind of Williams to Demon. Fox, goodbye. Oh, if you don't like that. It doesn't get any better than this.
No, it does not, Bill. Welcome in, Ryan in Sacktown, coming to you from the Kings Court Studios. Gearing up for maybe about 90 minutes. We'll see how long the show goes. Let everybody know that we're on. Give us a thumbs up, a retweet. It would be greatly appreciated. Beam last night, 2 times in a row. These Kings seem to be playing a little different for Doug Christie. We're going to hear from him in a little bit. We've also got some audio from De'Aaron Fox. Is there maybe a conduit that Doug Christie has to this team that Mike Brown did not? Is that maybe starting to show itself? We'll talk about it. Also, I've got a major problem I've got a problem that I need help with, and I can't figure it out. I'm going to share that with all of you. And what is this Kings team going to do? We're on Devin Carter watch, by the way. He was assigned back to Stockton. They are just getting ready to tip off. If they haven't tipped off already, assuming he is going to be dressing and playing for them. What will this team be like once Devin Carter gets back? How many games is he going to be in Stockton? Remember, I had said it's going to depend the amount of time that he is in Stockton and how much he plays for Stockton is largely going to depend on him, his conditioning, and how his body's feeling, how his shoulder is feeling coming back off that surgery. But he healed quick. He said it the other day in his press conference. He is a quick healer. So good thing for this Kings team. And there's one guy on this roster whose minutes could be greatly reduced. He might be feeling a little pressure. We'll talk about him as well. So get up in here. Want to hear from you. You can call the show 916-822-9485. I guess you can text it too. In fact, my man Charlie couldn't get through the other day. Charlie, I got you.
Hey, my name's Charlie. I'm a huge Kings fan, and I just wanted to, I guess, discuss my frustrations about the past couple of days. Basically the season as a Kings fan, it's just been a disappointment, but mostly the past couple of days, and just my disappointment and just disgust in the owner of this franchise and just the direction this franchise is heading. I frequently go to Kings games. I've been to a lot. I'm actually a college student, so my parents have been nice enough to kind of get me tickets to the game, so I've been able to go. And it's just been so unfortunate to see them. I mean, they've lost 6 in a row now. And I'm just pretty disgusted with this team. I'm pretty close to, I love this team so much, so it's kind of basically, I feel like it's my last straw. And I'm obviously going to support this team, but it's just so hard right now. I'm glad I go to University of Oregon, so I'm glad I have the Ducks at least are in the college football playoff, but it's definitely unfortunate times as a Kings fan. So yeah, bye-bye.
Gosh, that didn't age well, Charlie. That did not age well at all. So that's the first time I listened to it. Poor Charlie's like, at least I got the Ducks. Oh, man. That was a great voicemail, by the way. I think Charlie's tone and the content expressed a lot of fans' feelings perfectly. Now, granted, that was left on Saturday at 10:55 p.m. Man, well, Charlie's probably feeling a little bit better about the Kings and a whole lot worse about the Oregon Ducks. How about that? Oregon gets bounced. The worst part is it's by Ryan Day in OSU. I just can't do OSU. Ryan Day, I can't watch his games that he coaches. The guy just kind of creeps me out, and I don't know what it is. It's not his fault. It's not like he's controlling his genes, but his face always looks frozen. Like Ryan Day is a close second to Royale, man. I just, both of them, stay the hell away from me. Stay away from me. And by the way, I think Ryan Day is probably coaching for his job after that Michigan loss. He probably would have been fired had Ohio State not made the playoffs, but they move on. Lots to talk about here tonight. Tomorrow, you got Memphis rolling into town. We're going to go through some of that. Flores, what's up, my man? Thoughts on Coach Doug's speech? I'll talk about it here in a few minutes. There's never been any question about Doug being a motivator. It's really the X's and the O's. Certainly, Doug is going to be more of a player's coach. He was a player, but the X's and the O's and the wild card to that entire formula is this Kings staff that's behind Doug. Grant said it so many times. Fourth in line on the bench, and Doug gets the interim job. Jay Triano passed over. Luke Laux passed over. That was really weird. So this staff seems to be coaching hard for him. They're going to all have to be on the same page the rest of the way through. John, what's up, man? I know you're happy. I know you are very happy. Alberto, late night show. Ryan, working OT tonight. First show of the day here on the network. Got to get one in for sure. In fact, I've got a question for everybody. I might as well pose it now. Now that we are into the winter, it's the new year, the time of the show, and it couldn't come at a worse time. I mean, it couldn't have come at a worse time. The show's been picking up momentum, and that's a huge testament to all of you. Thank you very much. The time is got to change a little bit. And I'm trying to decide which way I want to go with it, whether I want to go earlier, whether I want to go later. So give me your thoughts. Give me your thoughts. A couple of times that are floating around in my head. 1 p.m., which we have done before, 1 p.m., or possibly 4 p.m. 4 p.m. Now, if we do 4 p.m., that's going to be on the days that Napes is not doing shows. And that might, depending on the Kings schedule, negate the pregame show. So let me know what you're thinking. Dennis is ready. Dennis, you got to settle down about Doug, my man. You've got to settle down about Doug. Let's chill out. It's been 2 games. The team has responded as they should. Had this team not responded to a coaching change, then you have a serious problem. You're going to get a bump with a coaching change, especially a guy like Doug Christie, who's played for the Kings, who loves Sacramento. It's a little bit different there, more of the individual coach, player development coach, but now he's sitting in the big chair. I will say this. I've really enjoyed listening to him, and I know that Flores asked this. I've enjoyed listening to some of his responses and some of the things that he said at the podium, whether it's before the game, at practice, etc. Now, can it get executed? Are we going to see the results of that? We'll see. Last night in the fourth quarter, you absolutely saw that. My girl Anita is here. What's up, Anita? Hope you're doing well. Gonna have to do lunch again sometime soon. One of the smartest Kings fans I know, and a hell of an author too. So Anita, thank you for being here. Great person as well. Alberto, impressed with the fourth quarter. Okay, what's up with this DC Fryer stuff? DC Fryer already has a steal assist and a 3-pointer made. Okay, you're talking about Devin Carter. All right, DC Fryer. That's why you're calling him DC Fryer. He should have those numbers already. He's a first-round pick in the lottery. He's playing against G League talent. But nonetheless, his conditioning, what I want to see from him, besides staying healthy, is I want to see what his stats look like in the third and fourth quarter when his legs start getting a little bit tired. As he said, Devin Carter, a couple days ago, when his back starts to tighten up. I want to see how he looks then. He's going to look great out of the gate. He should look good right out of the gate. But yeah, Jake, what's up, my man? Yes, hopefully he'll be good to go soon. Physically, he's fine. He got cleared early. It's just a matter of conditioning. And this Stockton team, by the way, they're a fun team to watch. If you have not been watching Stockton, you should. Get to Stockton. It's a cheaper ticket. You want to sit on the floor, it won't set you back too far. And you see good basketball. You'll see a lot of the same personalities out there that you see at Kings games. Go check it out, especially if your kids love basketball. Take them down there. And it's not that part of Stockton. I say it all the time. It's Stockton, but it's not that part of Stockton. In fact, I will be down there January 8th covering the LA game. Yes, the chosen one, Junior, Bronny James, will be in town. So Haunted Horse in the house. Holy crap. Okay. Rhino is a consummate professional. Thanks for all these shows. It's my pleasure. Actually, I kick that right back at all of you. Thank you for being here for all these shows. Means the world to me. Absolutely means the world to me. So let's move on. By the way, Bennett's, brought to you by them. Go to bennettsrestaurants.com. Check out all 3 of their locations here in the greater Sacramento area. You will not be disappointed. I can promise you that. That's bennettsrestaurants.com. Progressive Progressive and I have this thing going back and forth. Can't wait to get ran out by Ryan again. But I have to give my credit where credit is due. 2 straight back-to-back wins for the Kings. Not bad at all. They're kind of cooking. Well, there's an aspect of when they're cooking. And I think we all know what that aspect is. Doug Christie I'm not going to say instilled, but Doug Christie has made one thing very clear for this team. Effort, non-negotiable. He will take care of you on the back end, but when you are out on that floor and you are out in front of this fan base, non-negotiable. You are diving for balls. You're giving it your all. Now, you're not always going to have the opportunity to be doing some of those little things. You've got to put the other team into retreat. So that's when you hear Coach Christie say, we've got to make them feel us first. That's part of that formula. But there's no denying what that team did down the stretch last night. I'm not counting the final possession because it was just really dribble the clock out, let them do whatever they want, just don't foul them. From the 3:03 mark out, the Kings did not allow a single freaking point to the Sixers. The score was 103-97 at that point. In fact, the Kings got 7 straight stops in clutch time. And not only did they get straight stops, they converted on the other end. Usually those 2 things don't go together, but they did. Here were the last possessions. Turnover. They gave up an offensive rebound and then missed 3 by the Sixers. Turnover, missed 2, turnover, and then turnover. DeMar DeRozan coming up with those 2 late steals. He was the defensive player of the game last night. Gets the crown in the locker room. Doug Christie fired up about it. Here was Doug after the game.
Super proud of our guys. That is the type of fight that we expect on a night-to-night basis. I mean, listen, closing the game 15-0. During the timeout, I believe it was 107-98. And I challenged them to get 3 stops in a row. Luke offered up trapping because I believe we had 2 fouls to give, and then we ended up under 2 minutes still with 1, so it allowed us to just continue to be super aggressive, which was super big time. Across the board, so many guys came up huge. 18 points in the final quarter for them is, I mean, it's not going to happen every night, obviously, but that's what we want to be. 6 fast break points in the second half after 13 in the first. They locked in, and just, again, super proud of them.
Some of those stops that you were talking about, particularly during that run, you know, on the offensive end, you'd end up with a turnover. In previous games, you might see a let up on the other end of the ball. How pleased were you to kind of see, like you talked about, them locking in but not giving up that rope either?
Well, we've talked about it, like make, miss, turnover. We can't. These are the times that we have to overcome. We have to figure out a way to make it happen. We have to manufacture what we need, and that crowd, incredible, like playing for that crowd and in front of that crowd. I think like that is the spirit that I like to see out of them on a night-to-night basis. And again, just super proud.
So I do think that there's a conduit there. Doug was here in the glory times. Doug was here in the renaissance of Kings basketball in Sacramento. I mean, any of you that attended a game at the old barn, whether it was game 61 on the schedule and you're playing the crappy Clippers, or it was game 7 in the playoffs, The building was rocking. There was nothing like back in the day. Don't get me wrong. I love a good seat. I love being close to the action. If you've never had the opportunity to sit by the court, you should, because it will give you a whole new perspective on how the NBA game is played. You get a different perspective of how big these guys are and how much, how do I say this? How they don't waste movement, how efficient, how strong they are, how quick they are. It will just blow your freaking mind. But sitting at the top of Arco Arena and having the crappy snack stand right there that only had King's dogs and popcorn and red vines and all that, and getting the view of the entire arena erupting, or feeling the ground shake because it's so damn loud, or high-fiving people you don't even know, hugging other fans when the Kings win. Yeah, that was like back in the day when it wasn't like weird to like, what's up, bro? You know, like do something like that. Now you got to be careful about that. But what I'm saying is Doug lived through all that. If you're De'Aaron Fox, if you're anybody on this roster, you can hear about it, but how do you translate that feeling to them? And it's trying to get them to have those moments on their home court. And I don't really think the Kings have really had too many of those at G1C. G1C has not been a friendly place for the Kings to play. Hell, maybe it's haunted. The owner did build it on L Street. L Street. Why would you build it on L Street? Had to change it to David Stern Drive. Anyways, but getting back to the point, Doug has demonstrated that before. So Doug knows the intricacies about what turns this fan base on, what turns this fan base off. And I feel like there's a different level of respect and a different level, here's another word, of understanding between Doug Christie and these players, especially the ones that are playing really heavy minutes. You know, Mike Brown, and I'm not going to open the can of worms, should Mike Brown have been fired or not, but Mike Brown never played for the Kings. Mike Brown didn't, maybe he was here back in the day as an assistant coach or a head coach, but you get what I'm trying to say. It's something different when the guy in front of you has done it. And I know Doug was on the bench before. He could have been talking to the guys about all these things. But to a degree, I think it hits different. And I also think having him as a player, especially when it comes to the rest, when it comes to the downside of things, he's seen what works in this city at a very high level. And I think he's going to try to instill many of those things. And we're hearing those in the pregame, postgame press conferences. And last night, to a degree, we saw it translate. Now, granted, it was against a Sixers team that didn't have Joel Embiid. Yes, I know about the third quarter. The Kings had 7 turnovers in the first half. They turned it over 7 times in the third quarter. You're thinking, here we go again. But something flipped with them. And for whatever reason, it's nothing I can substantiate. It's nobody that I've talked to. I just feel like there's a different trust level. Like in my gut, I feel like when Doug's talking about, hey, you know what? I got you. When he was talking about technical fouls and talking to the refs, I feel like these players have that different just sense. Almost like he's one of us. Not saying Mike Brown wasn't one of them, but do you kind of get what I'm saying? Doug understands the vigor of the game. He understands playing at a high level for a long time. He can relate to so many different things with the style of play that this team's playing right now. And who better to relate to right now than Keegan freaking Murray? For all intents and purposes, Keegan Murray has become Doug Christie to a degree. Hell, maybe Doug shot the ball a little bit better during that time, at least versus the numbers this year. So I don't know. Maybe something is changing. Maybe something is different. The one thing that's not flipping over is this: the roster needs help. The roster needs a lot of help. Monty McNair has dug a hole slowly over the last 3 seasons of falling behind the curve, around the edges, around the fringes. And you know what happens when you dig that hole? You end up with a high-level G League bench. And that's what the Kings are working with. You end up with 2 guys on the bench that weren't even in the NBA to start the season. So there's still work left to be done. But as a Kings fan, I'm speaking as a fan. I'm taking my unbiased hat off. As a Kings fan, if that's the team last night, especially in the fourth quarter, if that's the team we see for the rest of the season, playoffs or not, play-in or not, if they play like that and they play inspired, I'm okay with it. I am okay with it. And you know what I know? I know Sacramento's okay with it too, because that's been the story of this team historically, outside of the Renaissance period of the Kings in Sacktown. From the late 90s to 2006, 2007, basketball was not good. But those teams tried. The effort was there. You could tell they still liked playing together. So for a night, last night, it kind of felt like old times for the first time in a new building. Here's Doug again after last night's game.
A lot of fun. I enjoy this. I'm a glutton for punishment probably, because it doesn't always go your way. But to watch a group of young men fight and battle and do the things that I'm asking of them, that sometimes may go against what they normally do, got chippy. And we've talked about not talking to the refs, and I was like, Trey, you owe me. And he was like, you're right, my bad. And then he comes up with that huge steal. DeMar goes in and closes the game out, ends up being a defensive player of the game with 2 steals. Like an all-around effort to experience that it's big time, man. It is. It's everything that I thought it would be. I'm a bit greedy, so you want more, but that there's just a lot of work ahead, and it's hard to win in this league. But these guys continue to fight like that. It'll make it special, especially for our fans.
And that's what it's about in this city. I think that's what, if you look back over the last week, I think at least for me, with the coaching's change and especially the Fox stuff, the Fox comment after the game about it doesn't matter, it's not going to make anybody feel better. That is just, it's like one of the worst things you can do. Really, it's one of the worst things you can do in any sport, in any fan base, but especially Sacramento. So that snowballing effect that just kept getting momentum, in the back of your head, if you take a step back, it's like, okay, this team's too good. Look at their progressive, plug your ears, their net rating. It's still positive. So there's something there. Granted, there are deficiencies, especially on the back end of the bench, but it was just like do these guys even care? Does the core even care? And having to ask that question is uncomfortable. I mean, dude, Charlie's voicemail, holy crap. Sounded like he needed to be talked off the ledge. And I don't mean that with any disrespect. I get it. I was there, but it wasn't necessarily because of winning or losing. And it's not like we're in a brand new spot today because the Kings have won 2 games in a row. Because if you look at the rest of the season, you look at the season before this, they can go on to lose 3 or 4. In fact, the trends will tell you that is what they are supposed to do. But at least it feels like there's a little bit of an inspiration there. Something to look at, something interesting. And when Devin Carter gets back, what's that going to look like? What is that going to look like? Because Devin Carter, if you watch the tape and you see how he plays, it's kind of his MO. He even said it after the first game in Stockton. He's like, I'm kind of that dog. I like to get in there. I like to mix it up. Now, there's going to be a learning curve, but if this team starts to take on that mindset, that's a damn good addition to this team and some fresh legs, too. Some very fresh legs. So I want to get to your comments. We'll put some stats up from last night as we do that. Talking Kings last night, talking tomorrow, the Memphis Grizzlies, a hobbled Memphis Grizzlies roll into Sacramento. Can the Kings get the dub? Appreciate it, Anita. That means a lot coming from you. It really does. BJ, what's up, dude? Christy is regimen and athletes like that because you know what is defined. I think too, and I'm not doing a great job of explaining it, but like he said, I know what I'm asking of them. I understand that it's a big ask. And, you know, Coach Brown, as I sit here and I look back and you rewind the tape and you go back to the press conference, possession after possession after possession after possession. Not going to do it 26 times, but you get my tone. You know, was there maybe more of a tone of talking down to this team instead of talking to this team? All these things we can continue to dissect. We've got plenty of season to do it, but it doesn't seem to be the case now with Doug Christie in here. And I don't get me wrong, not sitting here saying Doug Christie should be the next coach of the Kings. Not sitting here saying that Doug Christie's not doing anything wrong. Ooh, double negative. I just did something wrong. This is going to be a process, but at least the communication part of it, because I think it would be really easy if you look back at a Mike Brown press conference. Let me ask you this. If the way that Mike Brown talks to the media and the way that Mike does interviews, whatever it may be, if that's how he was communicating with the players behind the scenes, no indication that is or isn't how he was doing it. But if that was who's talking to you versus the way that Doug has been talking, a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more broken down, to a degree, a little bit more, do you want to say understanding? Which way would you prefer? And I know that's going to change based on the person. Some people like to be coached hard, others don't. They want it to be easier. I'm not going to knock you for either way, but I can see where that has a little bit of a different impact, especially with a guy like De'Aaron Fox. Foxy is sensitive. He is sensitive for sure. That was a good moment, Chili Dog. That was one of Doug's better moments indeed. With all of the offensive play going wild in the NBA and defense becoming extinct, then the Kings playing defense and being scrappy on a nice nightly basis could get them up to it. Okay, so maybe, but how many games? Last night was game 34. Let's not even start thinking about playoffs playing. Let's talk about getting to 500 first, and then we can start talking about that. But roll the tape back to last season when the Kings were ravaged with injuries after the All-Star break. It started with the game in Denver, the last game before the break, a game that the Kings traditionally lose, a game the Kings should have lost on paper, but it was a race to 100. It was scrappy. It was physical. And what happened? The Kings won. And what happened the rest of the way last year? That became their style. Almost every game, one of the best games I remember watching during this Beam Team era was last season's game at home against the New York Knicks. I think I tweeted out, this is like watching 1990s Kings basketball. But that's what the Kings became. Defense became the Kings offense. It was creating opportunities off of your defense, and the Kings were excellent in transition. This year, they've been a cluster in transition. Although the numbers somewhat tell you a different story, the eye test tells me it's been a cluster. But we saw this team play that style of basketball, and it worked. The record, not great, but they were in the NBA 2-minute report 2 times in 6 games, and they had a late East Coast road trip. So I could definitely see a little bit of scrappiness, that same thing here. But the one element that has to pick up, and it did pick up in the second half last night, is the free throws. The Kings cannot regress to where they were at last year with free throw attempts. Free throw attempts last year were down 21+% from the year before when the Kings made the playoffs. This year, to start the season, I think it was through 15 or 20 games, the Kings were in the top 2 or 3 in both free throw percentage and free throw attempts, and their free throw attempts were up 18%. Well, now they're down to up 5%. So free throws have to continue to be a part of the formula for this team to win. Absolutely has to be a part of the formula. Getting some feedback on the times. Appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words. Who is that? BG. Thank you very much, my man. Appreciate you being here. Primetime Rhino. What's up, Patrick? Tuning in from the East Coast. Love it. I can acknowledge that.
Acknowledge me.
Should Keegan come off the bench? Should Keegan come off the bench? I'm not ready to say that Keegan should come off the bench. Not even close to ready to say that. Because did you see what Paul George did to the Kings in the first half last night? And I know it slowed down. He only had 10 in the second half. But Keegan's kind of that guy who can guard 1 through 5. Now, I've talked to some people around the college game. College is not the pro game. But people that I trust in the college game that have said Devin Carter in college could sometimes guard 1 through 5, which kind of perked my ears up. You know, he's 6'2", 6'3", but he's got a 6'9" wingspan. That's a big wingspan for a guy. So I think I'm not saying Devin should be starting for the Kings. What I'm saying is, how many different ways can you throw alternate looks at that guy for the other team, whether it's a Paul George, whether it's a Kawhi Leonard? You get my drift. Could Devin get into that mix? And because right now it's Keegan Murray. Keegan's the guy that's getting that look every single night. But there is an element to having a quicker, more athletic starting lineup on the floor. Keegan's doesn't necessarily fit that build. Keegan's a very good player, but he's not as athletic as some of the other guys that he's playing with. So no, I'm not ready to go there yet. I am not, but it could come up. I think ultimately the move that I want to see, and it's the move that Mike Brown may have gotten some heat over behind the scenes, depending on who you believe, is DeMar DeRozan to the bench. Dirk made a great call last night. I mean, an excellent call. He said, did you look at DeMar DeRozan's minutes in the fourth quarter? And I didn't think about it, but then I went back and looked. DeMar played 8 minutes in the fourth quarter, but he sat for a lot of that time where the Kings went on that stretch run and turned things around. So, look, it's going to be up to Doug. They're going to tweak things. And don't forget, you've got a trade deadline coming up as well. So that's going to matter as well. Rhino, your thoughts on all the pundits and YouTubers calling for the Kings to trade Fox and start all over again? Their argument is that it will be too late if they don't do it now. Well, their argument about it being too late is wrong. That's wrong. Where it becomes too late is if we're sitting here this time next year and De'Aaron Fox is still on this Kings roster and he's not signed an extension. Now it's too late. Now De'Aaron Fox is a rental wherever he would be going if you had a trade partner. So it's not too late. Jerry Reynolds was on the show a couple of days ago. He came on New Year's Eve, and he thought that if you were going to move Fox, he believes the best time is around the draft. I found that really interesting. So I don't think it's too late, but Edward, call me a pundit. I think you do trade De'Aaron Fox. I think you do, especially with Monty McNair, who has shown with more important free agents than not that he's willing to tippy-toe around with them. It bit him with Bogey. You didn't get anything for Bogey. Bogey walks. But what about Malik Monk? What if Monk would have walked for nothing? Now, I know the Kings had a good beat on it, but ask the New York Giants about the beat that they had on Saquon Barkley. They had a gentleman's agreement, right? And Saquon didn't do anything wrong. He kept his word. But he had an agreement with Joe Sheen that he would come back to the Giants with any offer that he got from another team and give the Giants an opportunity to match it. Now, the Giants weren't willing to pay. Sorry, Patrick. Not trying to make your night bad, dude. Don't tune out. I'll stop talking about the Giants in a second. But they weren't going to pay what Saquon wanted, but those things don't always hold up. What about the UNLV quarterback? What about the UNLV quarterback that walked away during UNLV's best season, or at least the best season they had going, because he was promised some NIL money by, I believe it was an offensive coordinator that didn't have the right to do it. Ultimately, here, as I sit today, and if you've been watching the show, you know my take about Fox. I really like Fox's game. I think he's a really good player, bordering on a star. And I say star because he's been an all-star. He's not a superstar. I think you have done as much as you can do with De'Aaron Fox. What concerns me about De'Aaron Fox is the trend of behavior. And it hasn't been a one-time thing. We saw it with Halliburton when he was here. We saw it last year when he didn't speak to the media for 16 days. And then this year, the podcast with Draymond, the comments to the media about the last play against Detroit, etc. When he was asked about the flight down to LA after Mike Brown was fired, said he just went to sleep. It's a normal flight. Now, big deal. I guess that's not a huge problem. He's being honest. But you also have to read the tone in the room. And if you're going to be that guy for, and I'm going to say that team, because it is that team, if you're a team that's contending for a championship, I need more. I need thicker skin. I need somebody that leads from the front. And you could almost say the Kings have done as much as they can do to win with Fox. They've done a lot. Now, they've also missed out on some other opportunities that could have been as important. I would not be mad. I'll put it this way. I would not be mad if De'Aaron signed another 4 years here in Sacramento and he stayed. It's not like I'm going to be pissed and bent, but I would be worried because I don't know when that Fox is going to pop up again, because that 16 days that I'm talking about where he didn't talk to the media, that also included a significant dip in De'Aaron's numbers during that stretch in both points and assists. I'd be worried about that. I'd be worried about a trade request. So I am in the camp that you trade him. Here's why. I think you've got some really good pieces here in town. I think you've got some very good pieces to the puzzle of what can be a championship roster. Because a championship roster isn't the 12, 14, 15 best players in the world together. Doesn't always work. Look at the Miami Heat's first year when they built their super team. But you need different roles on every single team. Guys that play their role perfectly and are a specialist in a certain area. Know your strengths, but also know your weaknesses. And I think there's certain pieces here. Malik Monk, energy, balance. When things are down in the locker room, you know who keeps things up and light? It's Malik Monk. I said energy, it's undeniable. He's the heartbeat of this team sometimes. Keegan Murray, like I said, kind of your Doug Christie right now. Kind of your Doug Christie defensively. But dude will bring it every night. And what he does on one end of the court never affects what he does on the other end of the court. That's an important role on a team. Sabonis, he's your motor. He's your workhorse. Right? So there's pieces here. Now, if you trade Fox and you get a decent haul for him, depending on the timing of it, this could be much more of what I call a recalibration and an opportunity to still work with some of these really good pieces that you have. You got Malik under contract. I know Keegan's going to be coming up next year. Not this next season, but the season after that, because the Kings have already picked up his option. You've got Domas. And I can go so on and so forth. You've got Devin Carter now, depending on how he turns out. I don't think you're in full rebuild mode, depending on what you get in return. Now, if you start trading pieces right now, important pieces, or at least pieces of what I consider parts of the puzzle that could fit into a championship puzzle to appease De'Aaron Fox with no guarantee on the back end that De'Aaron Fox is still going to be here, then you could walk into a situation where this team is, I'm talking Charlotte rebuild level, because now you've traded away a Malik Monk, you've traded away a Keegan Murray, you've traded away for the short term to appease Fox, and now Fox is gone too. So I think that's what this is ultimately leading to. I know De'Aaron loves Sacramento. I just don't think. I mean, what else can you do with De'Aaron Fox? I've asked the question so many times. You know the question. We've talked about it in the past couple weeks, and it surrounds him and Sabonis. Does Domantas Sabonis make De'Aaron Fox better? Indisputably, the answer is yes. And I've asked this to people around the team, people that cover the team, and here's been the consensus. Yes, Domas makes Fox better. Does De'Aaron Fox make Domantas Sabonis better? Most people can't answer that question. And when they do answer the question, it's usually no. And the first thing they point to is how Malik Monk utilizes Domantas Sabonis, how he lifts him up. Domas is not a creator. He doesn't create his own shots. You set him up for shots. And that's much of this roster. A lot of this roster is finishers and not creators. But you see how Monk pulls that out of him. To me, De'Aaron Fox is closer to a Russell Westbrook. He's closer to a James Harden. He's closer to one of those guys that can fill it up. When he's on, he's on. When he's on, he's off. But when he's on, he's not also bringing everybody up with him. And I mean that with all due respect. He's a scorer. Let's call it what it is. Yes, he ends up some nights with 11, 12 assists, but that's usually the exception to the rule. When De'Aaron Fox is at his best, it's when his three-point attempts are in the same neighborhood of his assist number. That is the best De'Aaron Fox. But even with that De'Aaron Fox, I just think if you want to play this team basketball concept that Doug Christie talked about, we listened to it yesterday on the show about how he believes his Kings team created this style of basketball that you're seeing in the NBA now, minus the massive amount of three-pointers, where everybody can play a little bit of every position, right? Well, De'Aaron Fox is a ball stopper. You can't play that style with De'Aaron Fox. So to me, the Kings either have to make a decision. This is going to be a type of, you've got to put the right things around him that offset his weaknesses and his bad nights. Guys that really, for all intents and purposes, are self-starters. Guys that can create on their own. Guys that can get themselves going and don't rely on a teammate or an assist or a pass to do so. You've got to move more that direction if this is going to be De'Aaron Fox's team and you think he's the guy you can go all in and win a championship with. I don't think De'Aaron Fox's game mixes with this cohesive ball-moving style. Look at it. Let's compare and contrast, and you can do this in the chat. Compare and contrast Mike Bibby versus De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox, a much better player, but look at what Mike Bibby did in addition to shooting. It's a really interesting conversation. So, again, if that's the direction the team wants to go, and that's the way that Doug Christie is going to coach this team this year, I just don't think, and it's not a specific De'Aaron Fox thing, it's an any type of player that plays the game like De'Aaron Fox thing. You can't have one of those guys. And in this case, with this team this year, you actually have two of them. You've got DeMar and De'Aaron. And some would say the DeMar DeRozan experiment has not worked here in Sacramento. Not ready to go that far and say it hasn't worked, but there's definitely an argument there. Here's Doug again last night.
De'Aaron Fox is elite, man. He is. He has the ability to sit down and guard because of his quickness, his strength, and his athleticism, his anticipation, and then his competitive nature is just high level. And he's finding his way in front of our very eyes, and it's huge, man. I just hugged him and said, "Love you, man. Like, thank you, like taking me on a ride because you're taking the city on a ride." And even like when I look at Domas, like 12 defensive, 9 offensive, 21, 17, Malik, like all around. But before we left the locker room, I said to De'Aaron, before we headed out on the floor, it's just like, you set the tone because you are the tone setter. Get downhill and get at him immediately. And
yes, they did. It's what brought this team back last night. No denying De'Aaron Fox's speed. And Grant said this actually pretty well. You know, De'Aaron Fox probably isn't getting much faster. I know Kyle Draper, and I respect the hell out of Drapes. Despite some people thinking that Drapes and I don't like each other, I don't have a problem with Drapes. I'm not sure if he has a problem with me. But Kyle said that De'Aaron's got still 7 or 8 years of his prime left. I don't think, and I think maybe he misspoke. It was on one of the telecasts. De'Aaron has a couple of years, probably 3 years of prime left, and then it's that kind of descent downhill. And so that's why you look at this team and the framework and how young it is. I mean, I'll ask all you, is De'Aaron the guy that you want to hitch your wagon to? Do you truly believe that you can win a championship with De'Aaron Fox? Because if you do, then I think that significant roster changes have to happen. As much as I love Keegan Murray, unless he's able to create on his own and become more of a scorer, you might have to look at going a different way. But before you start making those decisions, the Kings would be dumb dumb to do those things to appease him being De'Aaron Fox in the interim without a commitment from De'Aaron Fox. I mean, do we know who De'Aaron already is? There's a little bit that comes with him. And again, I love the guy. I love that he's a family guy. He's a consummate professional off the court. Never had a problem. Great for the community. Loves Sacramento. But I just don't know. His time run its course. And I think that's what we're all trying to figure out. And if you do think that there's more you can do around De'Aaron, then what is it? You've brought in a Sabonis that's been the workhorse, that does everything and fills up the stat sheet, right? You've brought in shooters. You've brought in his best friend in Malik Monk. So that's why I think this conversation is so interesting. But the Kings just have a giant hole in front of them that they are going to fall flat-faced into. It will be walking into quicksand for this team and this fan base if you start scrambling and making big moves and moving pieces that are important to this team as they sit today without knowing what De'Aaron wants. So it's an interesting conversation. Didn't mean to get all into the De'Aaron talk, but Andy, welcome onto the King's Court tonight.
Hey, Rhino, how you doing, man?
Good. Welcome on, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just came back from the gym, had a leg day, you know.
Oh, leg day. Good for you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I just want to chat a little bit about Kings, but just between you and I was listening to the last 10 minutes or so, and when I look at Fox and I look at SGA, there's a lot of similarities within their game as far as being a speedy guard, being driving to the basket, being pretty, I mean, slightly efficient from the three, being a pesky defender. Obviously SGA is a lot better of a player, more well-rounded, but I just look at like what the Thunder have done and how well their organization is ran from the front office all the way down. And I just can't help but think, with how good Fox is, if he was fully committed, you know, I just wonder how the Kings would be positioned now if we don't draft, a Davion, if we don't draft the Devin Carter, and we're drafting guys like a Jalen Williams or forwards and positions that are of need, and actually giving Fox even more help that we need because drafting all the guards is good and all, but a lot of them have been traded or they're coming off the bench. And, I just can't help but think like where the Kings could potentially be if we actually, drafted the right players.
Yeah, that's almost true of every franchise, right?
Yeah,
Draft the
that's
right players.
yeah, that's true.
Look, I'm with you, Andy, that there are similarities between Fox's game and SGA's game, but the one thing that separates the two?
Probably the mindset, I would guess,
Yeah,
being aggressive.
Mindset's definitely part of it. It's consistency.
Yep.
SGA does it every single time he steps on the floor. SGA doesn't need a bad call to piss him off. SGA doesn't need to be chirping with the refs. He is playing his own game and nothing gets him off of it. It is 0 to 100 for 48 minutes that he's on the basketball court. And I'm not questioning, like, Andy, I'm not trying to question De'Aaron Fox's drive. I'm not trying to question his character and his work ethic. But, there's a reason that we have the Fox quarter and the clutch player of the year. There's a reason that almost every telecast, Mark Jones is like, oh, you better watch out. You're going to get that man going, right? Like, you don't ever hear that about SGA. You don't hear that about the other guys. And so, that's the element that to me, can you change that 8 years in? I'm not sure.
No, that's a really good point. And with Fox being 27, 8 years in, like I agree with what you said about the speed and like his, career trajectory. Like I think, until he's 30, 31. I mean, I feel like the longevity of NBA players has been like a lot greater, just probably because of recovery, load management, that type of stuff. But with the speed, when you get older, that's just gonna, you're gonna get slower and slower and slower, like you mentioned. But as far as trading for a piece this season, right? Like the main topic is like, do we risk sending these picks, or do we risk, mortgaging our future to try to, appease Fox and keep them here and like, maybe make it through a first round or a second round to the playoffs? In my opinion, I feel like although he's not a superstar, a talent like Fox is extremely hard to come by. And with especially with the Kings, like we got to keep in mind, like in the draft, like the Kings haven't had a player of Fox's caliber and the last 15, 20 years. If you want to count DeMarcus Cousins, maybe, but he was also like a cancer to the locker room. I just feel like if you have a good player, an all-star caliber player in Fox, you have an all-star center in Sabonis. I feel like winning a championship is obviously the goal, but if you can just be a consistent playoff team, I feel like that's pretty successful. And I feel like the worst thing that can happen is if we trade for, say, a Cam Johnson this year, we get rid of a Herter or a Murray or whatever the deal ends up being. Worst case scenario, Fox doesn't sign an extension this summer. Well, then obviously, we're going to have to trade him because we can't let him walk for free. And then we try to recoup some assets this year. Even then, we still have Monk, we still have Keegan and Sabonis, like you said. So, I don't know. I feel like we have to try to do something now while he's here because talents like him are so hard to come by.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point about talents being hard to come by, and you're right. And especially that want to be in a small market. De'Aaron said in the Draymond podcast, this is where, his life is at. Rain's grandparents live here. That's important. Same kind of thing with Sabonis. He had only played in small markets up until here. That's why there was a lot of, optimism that he would want to stay in Sacramento. I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that wants to ask, like, if De'Aaron Fox played for the Knicks, if De'Aaron Fox played for one of the big market teams, would we see De'Aaron Fox in the same light? And I'm not just talking about Sacramento fans. I'm talking about the NBA. I mean, do we have goggles on about a guy being better than maybe he really is? And I'm not saying that by any means, but I think it's a question that needs to be asked. And yes, you do have the right parts between Sabonis and Fox, but those parts aren't making each other better. They're both
Yeah.
really good and they make the team better individually, but together they don't make each other better, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like you said, Sabonis definitely makes Fox better, but Fox does not make Sabonis better. But I also feel like, I don't think we have purple goggles on. I think if you look at the stats, I mean, the stats don't lie. Like Fox is averaging the most points, the most rebounds, I think the most assists too he has in his career. And that's with everything going on with the coaching change, with adding DeMar in, with the clunky fit that it's been. The season has not been ideal. And I feel like his stats are very, very good. Even when you look at some of the advanced stats, like, floater percentage, points in the paint, he has the most fourth quarter points. Like, all those people in those categories, it's a Jason Tatum, it's a Jalen Brunson, it's, a Giannis, a Jokic, and, De'Aaron Fox is in all those conversations with those
Yeah,
advanced
Andy,
stats.
it's a great point, but I'm going to counter it with this. It's when he wants to, right? What
Mhm,
did we see in LA the first game that Doug coached? De'Aaron chucked up like 11 or 12 threes.
mhm.
He didn't even really try to get to the paint. So that's the scary part. Maybe he is really that good because he's still in that group and he's not doing it all the time. When he's doing it all the time, he's unstoppable. But what's keeping him from doing it all the time? Because yes, teams will scheme defensively for guys, but Fox doesn't get doubled that much.
Yeah, no,
So
I mean,
is it a choice? Who can push him to do that more? And I guess, is he going to be the player that pushes himself to do that more? And quite frankly, I think I need a bigger sample size of seeing it, because last year I thought was a really bad year for De'Aaron. I thought a lot of the free throw problems, and not the percentage, but the attempts, fell on his shoulders. And Jerry Reynolds and I have had so many conversations on this show about why it's so much more important to try to get to the paint, try to get to the rim, get fouled versus getting the extra point of shooting the three ball.
Yeah, I one thing about his game that like obviously, none of us like is when he settles for the three way too often. But then you see a game like last night, like what was he? I think he was like 8 for 8 in the paint or something like that. Obviously 13 of 16 overall. Like he's very efficient, he's very aggressive when he wants to be, like you
Right.
said. Um, and obviously, like, we would like him to be super aggressive every single night, like an SGA or a Luca or, one of these, superstars. But even then, he's not as aggressive as we'd like him to be, and he's still averaging, almost 27 points a game. He's still one of the best guards in the league. So I feel like the talent is there. Do you think it could be, maybe 2, 3 years ago, he was not as good as of a defender as he is now? And do you think this could be kind of like a Keegan Murray situation where he's usually guarding one of their best players? He's more active on defense. More of is being asked of him on the defensive end. And prior than like instead of a couple years ago, maybe he wasn't defending as much. And so maybe he's like just settling on offense more. Maybe he's not being as aggressive because he
No.
is.
So I would say it's the opposite, Andy. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No, you're
back.
good.
Last year when Keon Ellis came into the starting lineup, that's when Fox's steals shot through the roof, because you were able to take De'Aaron off that guy, the point guard, whoever the scorer was. Keon picked up that load, and De'Aaron was able to play more of that center field kind of position where he can gamble at times. He can use his quickness to get to passes that guys think will get there, but De'Aaron's just too quick. Um, and so last night you had the same case. You have Keon and Monk on the floor together with him, and it frees him up. He didn't have to take Maxey all the time. And so I don't know. It's a great question. And I guess that's the $1,000,000 question, Andy. It's, if you go another 4 or 5 years with Fox, is he just going to be good enough to be in the conversation, or is the conversation going to start with him?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Honestly, I kind of just feel like it depends on like what your expectations are as a fan. Like everyone wants to win the championship. Everyone wants to have the best player in the NBA. But like talents like Luca, LeBron, SGA, like those are like once every 5 to 10 year talents. Like the odds of our front office making the right draft pick and developing that player or us getting a free agent of that caliber are so low. Like we've had so many top 5 draft picks that have just been blown
A
or
ton. Yeah.
or they've been cut or they've been traded or they're not even in the league anymore. So I feel like, you have a top 5, top 7 point guard in Fox. If you just put the right pieces around him, you get the right coach. I don't know if Doug Christie's that guy, but who knows? I mean, I would love to see this team in the Western Conference Finals, and it kind of just depends with right now, like with how the West is. I really think we should be aggressive because even with our record, we're still only 2, 3 games out of the 7th, 8th spot, and we're 4 to 5 games out of the 5 and 6 seed, and every single team in the West, besides the Thunder and the Grizzlies, they all look pretty vulnerable. Like if you put the Kings in a series with any of those teams in the 3 to 7 spot, like I feel like we could take a couple games, honestly. And I'm not trying to be biased or anything.
Yeah, no, I hear. I've got a couple of those teams definitely over the Kings as we sit, but I get your argument. The problem is the opportunity for the Kings to kind of put some fat reserves in for the winter are gone. The schedule is brutal the
Mhm.
rest of the way home. So we'll see if they can get it done. And certainly with the trade deadline upcoming, we're only about 5 weeks away. We'll know the answer sooner rather than later. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, thank you, man. Have a good one.
Appreciate you, brother. You know how Andy's a good dude? He does leg day. That's how you know Andy is a good guy. Dennis, or excuse me, not I see Dennis is always on my mind. Like I feel like Dennis is always like on my shoulder with the amount of like DMs and King stuff I'm seeing from him. He's just like always right here. No offense to you, Dennis. It just, yeah. All right. You get what I'm saying. With all due respect, BJ, don't forget, man. Don't forget Vivek's promise.
This is your team.
Yeah, I don't know about that. This is your team. Here's the other thing that we're not talking about with this Fox situation. And I think we have to address this elephant that's in the room. If you believe what you read in the Ramona Shelburne article, you've got to be a little worried about who's at the wheel at this trade deadline. And I mean that with all due respect to Monty McNair. I used the baseball analogy with Monty McNair that during his time as GM here, he's either hit a home run or he struck out. He doesn't hit singles, he doesn't hit doubles, doesn't hit triples. It's a home run or it's a strikeout. This Kings bench, the Kings roster 7 through 15 was not a one-off season kind of thing. That was the accumulation of 2.5 years of not making moves around the fringes. But in that article, Ramona says, per a source, that the franchise thinks the roster is fine. That concerns me. The roster is fine. I believe that was the direct quote from the source. There's only a handful of people that source could have been. That source would, by a process of elimination based off of the knowledge that was given to Ramona Shelburne, you could put it down to about 4 or 5 people that source most likely was. And 2 of those 4 or 5 people are in the front office. So if that vision is being sold to Vivek Ranadive, and by the way, that same article says that Monty McNair is the one that convened the phone meetings and the other meetings about Mike Brown's job starting about a month ago. So if you have a GM that's telling an owner who really knows very little about basketball, and that's putting it politely, that this roster's fine. Hey, Vivek, you already got the pieces. This roster's fine. We just need to do you have the most, if you're a Kings fan who is 18 years old or younger, you're watching this, you're listening to this, hear me really quick. This is the most important decision, the most important Kings decision of your lifetime. And it's in the hands of Monty McNair. So where's your confidence level in Monty? Let you guys answer that, and we'll get to the chat here in a little bit. Andy, appreciate you calling. Everybody else can call as well. I'll put the link in the chat. QR code's on the screen. You can also call 916-822-9485, just like Charlie did and left a voicemail. Poor Charlie. Holy crap. I hope we can play that voicemail back at some point later this season and laugh about it. Poor Charlie, man. And that, I know that's a lot of Kings fans. I know it. You know that might have been you as a Kings fan. I'm telling you, that was partially me as a Kings fan. One thing that I always trust, that's Bennett's. Have you been to Bennett's lately? The West Side Grill. I better take Vivek down. I don't want Bennett's to take some heat about trading Vivek. Have you been to Bennett's recently? Did you go to brunch this past weekend? Weekend brunch at all 3 locations. The West Side Grill, the newest of the 3 in Rockland and the Blue Oaks Town Center. prime cuts of seafood and steak, by far one of my favorite. And I'm not saying that because they sponsor this show. One of our family's favorite restaurants to dine at. And by the way, they've got a little something for everybody, and it's not going to break your wallet, but it sure as hell will fill up your stomach. They've got specials that go throughout the week and the weekend. During the week, happy hour 2 to 6 o'clock, Monday through Friday. Monday, wine and dine Mondays. Get 2 entrees and a bottle of wine for under $70. It's not too bad. Plus the Uber, because you don't want to drive after that. So go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Check out their full menu. Make sure that you also look at the other specials. And by the way, if you've got a get-together coming up, if you've got an office party, some type of bigger gathering, Bennett's can reserve one of their private dining rooms for you, or they can take care of all the food and the trouble for you. And trust me when I say you want Bennett's to take care of it, just take it from Brian Bennett, the owner himself.
I don't know about you, but if you're thinking about having a holiday party or a party of any kind, and you don't ask us to make our house smoked salmon, to grill our prime New York steak, to grill long stem artichokes, to make ahi pokey. What are you talking about? You're going to have a party and you're not going to call Bennett's to have them take care of you? My goodness gracious. Give us a call. We can make this for Easter. We can make it for Christmas. We can make it for anybody's.
Bennett's will definitely make it.
Great success.
100% of the time. So do me a favor, go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. You can make reservations. You can put in your orders right there on the website now. Find out about all 3 locations in the greater Sacramento area and more. That's Bennett'sRestaurants.com. And a big thank you to each and every one of you that has shown up and shown out for Bennett's. The feedback that all of you have given us, we send it to Brian all the time. So thank you for trusting us on that, and thank you for supporting them. If you make it in, let us know. Send us a picture. Tell us. We will retweet it. We'll send it to Brian. We do have our first Bennett's Triple Crown winner, so that spot has been taken. But we're hoping if Grant can get back from the East Coast at some point this season, a watch party at Bennett's again. For those that have been with us for more than a couple of years, we've had a few of those as recently as the playoffs. And even before that, this is how far we go back with Bennett's. Grant and I got our heads shaved at Bennett's. Yes, we had our heads shaved at Bennett's. We did a fundraiser, and all of you came out. It was so cool. The G-Man came out. Jerry Reynolds was there. It was a great time. So we're looking to do another one. This time we're going to keep our hair. Pretty sure of that. But you can come out, hang out with us. We'll make it an away game, so that way we can watch the game together. We will broadcast from there as well. So keep that in mind. And get out there. Get out there. I'd love me some Bennett's. Afghanistan hopping in the conversation. Even if we missed Luka and SGA, I'd be happy with almost anything else. We literally took one of the very worst players slated to go in the top 10. That's just unforgivable. The Kings have made so many of those mistakes, too many to go down. If you want to play the what if game on the Kings draft picks, like from 2007, 2008, no, later than that, like 2009 to like 16, 17. Yeah, there's a couple that are good, but predominantly most of them, Thomas Robinson. How about Thomas Robinson? Judges? Hold on. Let's try another one. Jimmer Fredette? Ooh. I got it. I got it. No, I'm not going to go in on him. I like him. Marvin Bagley? Oh, man. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Every team has those, not like the Kings, though. The reason it's so important for the small markets is because that's the only way you're going to get your superstar outside of charity, outside of like a guy like LeBron or Steph saying, you know what, I really like that team that Sacramento has. I like them a lot. I want to take them over the top. Outside of that, you got to draft them. And then you have to convince them to stay, like your Giannis's, etc. Is it me, or does the Bennett guys for a moment sound like Jeff Goldblum? Ha ha. I don't know. Let's listen again. Does Brian Bennett sound like Jeff Goldblum?
I don't know about you, but if you're thinking about having a holiday party or a party of any kind, and you don't ask us to make our house smoked salmon, to grill our prime New York steak, to grill long stem artichokes, to make ahi pokey. What are you talking about? You're going to have a party and you're not going to call Bennett and have them take care of you? My goodness gracious. Give us a call. We can make this for Easter. We can make it for Christmas. We can make it for anybody's.
Okay. So when it first started and I was listening to like the first 10, 15 seconds.
It's a complete crap.
No, it didn't. It didn't. But as it went on, especially like with 10 seconds left to go, I started thinking about apartments.com in those commercials. So yes, I will make a ruling. It did kind of sound like Jeff Goldblum. Good job. Good job by you. Good job. It did kind of sound like Jeff Goldblum. I can do that. I can see it. Zion has a deli tray in the locker room waiting for him at halftime. All right, we're moving on to personal appearance. Is that what we're doing now? You know, he came into this season in the best shape of his life. He did. The best damn season of best shape of his life. And he still got hurt. Yeah, the Pelicans have some big decisions to make too. But if we're going to start calling people fat, you got to go back to what Malik Monk said about Trey Lyles. I mean, could you not just laugh at that? Like, if you're Trey Lyles, I'm laughing at that. If you missed it, this was Malik Monk. He was asked about what's changed about Trey. Why is he in such a flow now, catching some rhythm?
Yeah, since he's been back, he lost a lot of pounds. He was fat at the beginning of the year. Put on lost some of them lbs, and he's moving around now. So yeah, that's it. That's just he just lost some pounds, and that's it.
You kidding me, Malik? Edward, rather have the difficult decision of trading Fox or Luka if it didn't work out over Marvin Bagley. All right. Can we get off Marvin Bagley? We get it. But here's the other side of that trade, or out of that pick, is if you would have drafted Luka, De'Aaron Fox is out of Sacramento. Vlade's on the record saying that, and it doesn't take a genius to realize that. You've got to, he is one of those guys, Luka, that you've got to build around and change everything for. And you've got to deal with a ton of crap on the back end with him. A ton of it. And a lot of trips to Golden Corral. Luka would have loved Bennett. Yes, he would have loved Bennett.
Acknowledge me.
Definitely better than Golden Corral. I'll give you that. I will give you that. Man, you guys are killing me. Thank you for the super chat, Ibrahim Khan. Thank you very much. We'll go to my grave saying Stevie Wonder with a dart full of prospects would have hit on more picks than us in the last 2 decades. You know what's crazy about it? It's over multiple administrations, too. Over multiple administrations. You know, the Stauskas thing, the video's public. Vivek just took a harpoon to that draft. But Bagley, there was a lot of people. Remember, the Kings aren't the only team that passed on Luka. We got to be fair about that. There were other teams that passed on Luka. Atlanta took Trae Young over Luka. Bagley, though, in a sense, and I'm going to get killed for this. I know all of you are going to get really upset with me for saying this, but in a sense, I feel bad for Marvin Bagley. I feel really bad for Marvin Bagley. And a lot of his issues were because of the people who surrounded him. The people who surrounded Marvin Bagley made things so hard on that young man. Incredibly hard. So I feel for him in that sense. I know it doesn't change the pick. It doesn't change what could have happened with this team, but a lot there. And by the way, if we're gonna pile on, you know, this guy could be your owner. Things could be a little bit worse. Good old Jerry Jones. What if would you rather have Jerry or Vivek? I'm still going Vivek over this
There's
guy.
a pony in here somewhere, is the old adage, with the boy scooping up the manure on Christmas Day and whistling while he was doing it. Here comes Santa Claus. Well, that's us.
Here comes Santa Claus. I love how Jerry says Santa Claus there. I also like how Jerry says Los Angeles. Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Jerry's got some good sound bites out there. Vivek involvement in Stockton Kings retains his respect. Good job, 10.
Acknowledge me.
Hey, I'll tell you this. Excuse me, because I've covered Stockton really close over the last 18 months. And I know Vivek's daughter was the GM down there at one time. Gabriel Harris is now your GM in Stockton and doing an excellent job. But this Stockton program, the way it's ran, is so good. If you haven't been paying attention to Stockton, by the way, let's get you a Devin Carter update. Since we are talking about Stockton, let me refresh the box. Devin, last time I checked, he only had 8 points. What's he up to right now? Devin is at 10 points right now. He's 2 of 7 from beyond the arc, so he's cooled off a little bit there. 4 of 12 from the field, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. Filling up the stat sheet. Turnovers, not bad. Not bad at all. That's the number I'm looking at. Actually bad. 3 turnovers. Little bit better there. But let's see what that number goes to. Assuming he plays the rest of the game or through the rest of the game, I want to see how he does in the second half. That game in the second half right now, as we speak, fourth quarter, 11:50 to go. Stockton is blowing out Memphis, the Memphis Hustle, 95-64. Devin's night definitely is going to be over with that score on the board. So, but getting back to Stockton, great point here. They're ran well. They're doing the right things. And name me another NBA team that has had as much success with prospects, especially those that are undrafted, that have started through the G League, than Stockton in Sacramento. It's not there. Keon Ellis, great example. I think Isaac could be another one of those guys. Now, we can't put Orlando Robinson in that category because he played for Miami. We got to set that aside. But Isaac and Keon, guys that were scouted, undrafted, brought in, developed. The best thing Stockton's done, and Lindsey Harding, who is now on the Lakers coaching staff. She was the coach last year and was is the reigning G League coach of the year. What they did, and I talked to Kessler Edwards about this because he would get assigned to Stockton all the time. I was like, Kess, because they had just come back from a road trip, the Kings, and Kess was on that road trip. And the next night, Kess was in Stockton, and it was before the game. And I'm like, Kess, like, how are you staying ready? Because Kessler had gotten a couple of minutes on that road trip, and he just looks at me. He's like, up here and down here, and he pointed at the floor. And it was so true because when Kessler went down to play in Stockton, when Mason plays in Stockton, you saw Mason get some minutes last year. I love Mason Jones, by the way. His energy is freaking infectious. Infectious. His story's a great one, too. But Stockton did a great job last year of putting guys in situations, simulating situations in those G League games that would be very similar to what they would be doing in the NBA. It wasn't rolling the ball out and telling Kess to go score 40 points because he could if he wanted to. Same thing with some of these other guys. It was getting them ready for if they did get minutes in Sacramento, they were asked to do some of the same things. They were familiar with some of the same looks. And a name that many of you will recognize, Skal Labissiere, who is really in the twilight of his NBA career. I know he did some training camp with the Kings this year. He was with Stockton last year. He's with them again this year. He is their Domas in this sense. A lot of stuff runs through Skal there. You get a lot of the same pick and roll looks with Skal. He shoots in some of the same areas. They're completely different players, but he's that vet down there. And he's taken that role and freaking embraced it. So Skal has been incredibly important to that program. So it's ran so well. And for the most part, Vivek's not really near it too much. But Gabriel Harris, who got the promotion to full-time GM this year, doing an excellent job with that team. And Quentin also doing a great job as coach. So anyways, Pat Riley told Jimmy Butler to shut his mouth and play basketball. Dang, homie went Fox News on his team. That's truly amazing. Pat Riley does not put up with a lot of stuff. Really quick, why don't we check in on the NBA scoreboard? Pacers, let me refresh this for you. In action tonight, Warriors right now playing the 76ers, 83-63. Warriors winning that one. 6:40 left in the third quarter. Lakers up four, on the Portland Trailblazers. 1:11 left in the second quarter scores. Now they're up 7, 58-51. Pacers 128-115 over the Heat tonight. Good news for the West. The Celtics 118-115 over the Timberwolves. Celtics trying to get it back on track. The Nets, Jordi Fernandez 113-110 over the Bucks. Big win for the Nets. And the Thunder rolled the Clippers 116-98. That will help the Kings out as well. That's your NBA scoreboard. We'll get to the rest of the questions here in a sec. We're going to get ready to wrap up. Let's go over a few things for tomorrow. Really important. A couple things I didn't get to tonight. Wanted to talk about Kevin. We'll talk about him tomorrow leading into this Memphis game. But when I think about Devin Carter and Devin Carter getting into the flow with this Sacramento team, and you wonder where his minutes might come from, very well could be Kevin Huerter's minutes, especially with Devin's projected ability to guard multiple positions. So Kevin really struggling, although I feel for the guy. I really do. I feel for Kevin. The Kings are not doing him any favors with the style that they're playing and the way that Kevin's getting looks. Now, I get if you're wide open, you got to make a shot, but shooters got to be in rhythm too. That is very important. Also, tomorrow night, this is important. Where is it at? Sean Cunningham put it up earlier. Check this out. Memphis is pretty much going to be without nearly everybody. The Memphis game last time the Kings played them, and we'll go over that a little bit more tomorrow. Colby Jones played a huge role in that. Keon Ellis played a huge role in that game as well. Ja Morant was hucking up threes, and unfortunately, Ja will not be playing to do that again tomorrow night. But Memphis, nonetheless, still definitely dangerous. We will kind of profile that tomorrow, get you ready for it. We're going to do the Kings Court at 4 o'clock tomorrow. 4 o'clock for the Kings Court tomorrow. Make sure that you join us. I'm not sure if that means we'll do a pregame show or not. The Kings Court may bleed a little bit into pregame, but we'll get you ready for the Grizz and the Kings. Can they get 3 in a row? We will see. It's going to be a big night for this team. All right, let's get to the last of the chat and we'll wrap up. By the way, tomorrow we will also have our weekly WWE segment with Adam. We'll talk some wrestling because, after all, if you did not know, Fridays on the King's Court are a little bit more chill. We talk about more than the Kings, and during the off season, this show is a sports show. It's not just a Kings show. We talk all sports, but during the Kings season, very Kings heavy. Fridays, we let you in. It's what we call the Royal Rumble. Listen to my boy Fink.
It is now time for the Royal Rumble!
So what we do on Fridays is at the end of the show, anybody and everybody can come up and we can have a group discussion if you want to. That's why we call it the Royal Rumble. But we also talk with Adam, who is our WWE insider. We'll do that segment. And we also have another segment called Horsing Around with the NFL. Horsing Around with the NFL. Now, what this is my 10-year-old son, Liam. Now, he doesn't come on the show. I'm more responsible than that. But we record his NFL picks. He picks against the spread. He doesn't watch football. He has no idea who's on the teams, what the spreads are. And he gives us his picks. He also does not like the Niners.
Remember what I say for the Winos.
Does not like the Winers. So he gives us his picks, and then he picks against Haunted Horse. Yes, Haunted Horse. And if you noticed last week, we did not have a segment because that's when Mike Brown got fired. But the week before that, Horse and Liam tied. They tied, and both of them were over 500. So you might want to get your pen and paper out because this kid, he's a little bit of a savant. He has no idea what he's picking, but usually his picks are pretty darn good. Haunted Horse, I mean,
Let's go see a porno.
he just kind of does his own thing. No, Haunted Horse gives us some parlays as well. He has some good insight as well, and we'll certainly talk Kings. So Fridays are fun around here. Hopefully you can make it. That will be 4 o'clock tomorrow. Let's finish this chat out, and we're going to go home. Donald's going to the game. All right. I love it. Have fun at the game. Let me know what the reaction is like. Would love to see some more hustle. We had more clips from Doug and more clips from De'Aaron. We're not going to get to them. You can go listen to them on your own, but good stuff. Really what those clips did for me is give me a little bit more insight on the communication differences between Doug and this team. I think that is really something that could be a little bit of a change. The Matt Man, I'm excited about the Royal Rumble. Look, Raw's going to Netflix. That's right. Raw's going to Netflix. The debut is on Monday. So we'll talk about that tomorrow with Adam. We will talk about that indeed. Kevin's shot is too beautiful to miss. You know, Kevin jumps so high with his shot. And I know it's called a jump shot, but he jumps really high with his shots. His legs have to be there. He's been open. I get it. Herder, 76ers getting cooked. Pressure. Remember Grant from All Lives Matter, truest words ever spoken. No doubt. Pretty crazy situation. Yeah. I really hope, and Grant knows this, and this is Grant's conversation to have. I leave this stuff to him, but I really hope the truth comes out about everything that happened around that situation with Grant. I hope his day in court comes. So, and that will definitely be something you will want to hear. There's no doubt. Grant's an amazing guy. Love the guy. Would not be here on this platform if not for him. And not even this stuff, doing shows with him, having a show here, just his friendship. Grant is an amazing person. Amazing. Hell yeah, Stockton. Yes, indeed. All right. He did do that as we're wrapping up. Kada, you mean NBA champion Kada? No, he will not. I do not think he will, unless if the Kings really started tanking, like really tanking and had a ton of injuries, maybe. But no, his NBA days are done. And yeah, I love Scal. Scal is a great dude, consummate professional. Can't help but smile when you're around Scal. Jerry owns a team that won 5 Super Bowls. Kings are known for cowbells and still come in second to Will Ferrell in that category. Come on. Why are we going below the belt? I love Will. I think the Kings come in before Will on the cowbells. I think they do. I think you're wrong there. I get it. It's an epic skit. I think you're wrong.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
It's not horrifying, actually. People know cowbells for the Kings, not Will Ferrell. I'll die on that hill. Donald should start investing my attention into Stockton. Heard Carter was doing good. Yeah, Devin had a really good first game for them. Tonight, numbers aren't bad. Not bad at all. How many minutes did he play? Doesn't say. The G League doesn't do a great job of updating the minutes, but everything else is there. Yeah, so Devin Carter's line tonight, he was 6 of... Oh, he's still in the game. Interesting. Devin is still in the game because his numbers changed. So he's 6 of 15 from the field, 4 of 10 from beyond the arc. Did not get to the free throw line. Plus minus, he's a +4. He's got 10 rebounds, so he's got a double-double. 10 rebounds, 16 points, 7 assists. He's almost got a triple-double. Pretty good. Leading the way for Stockton is actually Devin Carter with 16. Mace has 14. That's Mason Jones. Sorry, I'm talking in nicknames. Jerry's World. Yeah, it's kind of Jerry's world, and everybody else is living in it. He's a different dude. I just wish he would take a step back. Jerry just needs to take a step back. He does. He's too involved. What owner has press conferences after games? And by the way, you know whose fault it is? It's the media's fault. Have you seen the sea of people that surround him after a football game? That's on the media. They need to stop doing that.
Not why I do it. Why I do it is I'm willing to play God a little bit.
Willing to play God a little bit. Jerry Jones is the worst owner in all the sports. Disagree. Cowboys have made the playoffs a few times, though. That is true. What is it? It's 13-4. They've been 13-4. I believe it's like 2 of the last 3 seasons, or maybe 3 of the 4 last seasons, and they can't get past the playoffs. Hey, John Finch.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
So, anyways, all right, we're going to get out of here. Thank you all for being here. Do me a favor if you don't mind. It would really mean a lot to me. Give us a thumbs up on the show. I've said it a zillion times. Your support of this channel has been absolutely incredible the past couple weeks, and it's always been incredible. But thank you. We will be here for it, good or bad. You always know that we'll be bringing you the content and hopefully a little bit of laughter and some fun too along the way. If you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. The King's Court, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, live here on the channel. And also Wednesdays, don't forget, we got our Kings Roundtable with Jerry Reynolds and Grant. That is a lot of fun. If you haven't already, follow me on the X. You can get all the links to the King's Court on Amazon, Podcasts, Spotify, Apple. We put exclusive audio up there. This show goes up there, but also interviews, different, I call them shoot-arounds. Usually I'll do them after I've talked to some of the people around the team that I know, sources, or if I've rewatched a game and I have thoughts, or we break down post-game audio. All that's over there. Completely free. Don't charge you a dime. Make sure you subscribe to that as well. Really would appreciate it. And again, big thanks to Bennett for sponsoring tonight's edition of Night Court here on If You Don't Like That. Kings, Memphis tomorrow. We'll have all the coverage for you. But for that, Kings Court, 4 p.m. right here on If You Don't Like That. Appreciate everyone for showing up tonight. Make it a great rest of the night. Be safe. And if I missed your comment, I always go back and read them. So rest assured, I will be there. I will comment back. So I appreciate the interaction. And hopefully the Kings can get a third win in a row. I believe that would tie. Like it's either 3 or 4 wins in a row. I think is the longest streak of the year. I could be wrong doing that off the top of my head. But John Finch, enjoy that Notre Dame win. To my man, Charlie. Oh, man, that was painful. If you missed the beginning of the show, go back and listen to Charlie's voicemail. Charlie went legend with his King's Court voicemail. It was so hurtful to listen to. It was so relatable. In fact, you know what, Charlie? Charlie, play us out tonight. Play us out, Charlie. Poor Charlie. I'm going to play it one more time. Charlie, my man, better days are coming, and hopefully a third win in the row tomorrow.
Hey, my name's Charlie. I'm a huge Kings fan, and I just wanted to, I guess, discuss my frustrations about the past couple of days. Basically the season as a Kings fan, it's just been a disappointment, but mostly the past couple of days, and just my disappointment and just disgust in the owner of this franchise and the direction this franchise is heading. I frequently go to Kings games. I've been to a lot. I'm actually a college student, so my parents have been nice enough to kind of get me tickets to the games, so I've been able to go. And it's just been so unfortunate to see them. I mean, they lost 6 in a row now. And I'm just pretty disgusted with this team. I'm pretty close to, I love this team so much, so it's kind of basically, I feel like it's my last straw. And I'm obviously going to support this team, but it's just so hard right now. I'm glad I go to University of Oregon, so I'm glad I have the Ducks at least are in the college football playoff, but it's definitely unfortunate times as a Kings fan. So yeah, bye-bye.
Charlie, my man, Charlie, if you can hear my voice and you get back to Sacktown because you are a student, hopefully college is going well, you get in touch with me. Hit me up on X. I'll take you down to Stockton with me, show you some good basketball, cheer you up. Go Kings! Light the damn beam. Stay the hell away from Levine. Court is dismissed.